Hello, Latvian colleagues. My name is Lauren Anderson, and I'm coming to you from Chicago, Illinois, in the United States. I had the privilege of being in Latvia in 2019, working with the US Embassy and getting to work with the university and work in the schools and learn about the curriculum reform that was going on in Latvia. And I also worked in 2020 with the university virtually through the embassy. And I'm happy to be invited back to speak with all of you as you get ready for the 2021 school year. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so I can show you the presentation that I made about how I've been using technology for setting goals and tracking progress in my current job, and some things that I think would be useful for teachers there as you continue in this second year of the new curriculum at the secondary level. This video is focused more on secondary level teaching. I know at the primary level, students use the language portfolio that comes targeted toward those years. So I was thinking of something that goes with the secondary level, and that matches more what I'm doing now. I'm at a university in the United States, and I'll show you some examples of the language goal setting process I use there. All right, so I put a picture there of one of my most recent meetings with teachers in Latvia as we were working on uh, new strategies related to teaching language according to the requirements of the new curriculum. So that's just for fun. But today I wanted to talk a little bit about the basis for the work that I do on goal setting with my students. I want to share some tools and kind of give just some very basic steps I use. And like I said, there'll be some examples of how I apply all of this in my classroom. My objective is that everyone walks away feeling like they have some new ideas that they can, for technology, they can use to support students in goal setting and reflection in order to deepen language learning. And I'm hoping that in the comment section or as you guys meet together at your conference, you can even share more ways that you are able. I know when I was touring classrooms, I saw many classrooms using goal setting and reflection as part of language teaching. So hopefully this will also spark some conversation. Okay, so a little bit about the basis for this work. I've been reading a lot about cultural capital theories lately, thinking about cultural capital as something that is typically measured by degrees, right? You earn your university degree, that is proof that you have that knowledge that is deemed culturally important, right? And has value in society. And I've been reading a lot about the work of expanding the idea of what is cultural capital. And I think this is really useful for us as language educators because outside of what we typically think of as valuable in terms of knowledge and education, newer research is positing the idea that migratory capital is important, resiliency capital is important, that students' familial capital, the knowledge they bring from their family environment, is important, linguistic capital earned in and out of school is important. We'll talk about that in a minute. Aspirational capital, that students have this skill of continuing to dream and plan and look forward. Navigational capital as students deal with the various systems in their lives. And that social capital that comes from networks that are maybe not valued in the same way that social capital is valued in terms of networking through your job, but the social capital that just comes from the wide network of people that you know and can connect to and learn from. And I think three of those are specifically important for students to start to think about with language learning. And I think the new curriculum that you have really supports students in doing that, right? What is linguistic capital? We want students thinking about not just language learning. I'm going to learn English. I'm going to have this many words in my vocabulary. I'm going to speak in the past, present, future, right? Those are great goals, of course, in language learning, but we want students thinking beyond that, right? Linguistic capital. How many different languages can they speak? Where do they speak those languages? How do they compare those languages in their minds? You know, you have this rich source in Latvia of students that very frequently come to school with exposure to more than one language and are working by the time they reach secondary on developing at least 3 different languages. So seeing that that is a skill that is useful in society, and not even different languages, but different dialects, different registers, different ways of communicating in different situations. As language teachers, it's our job to make students aware of how important this is, again, beyond just English, but the idea of that linguistic capital. So that's probably the most important one, but I think goal setting also can help students notice and build upon any aspirational capital that they bring, right? That dream, make a plan, set a goal, right? If you are able to do that, that is certainly a valuable skill. And also that social capital. We know that many of our students enjoy learning English or are motivated to learn English for reasons that might not be typically what's valued in a school setting, right? We want them reading research and literature and conducting experiments in English, and they might want to watch YouTube and learn more social language and use English to communicate with friends that they play video games with in other countries, right? And I think this goal setting process can really bring all of those things in, right? The students have these strengths, they have this capital that they're bringing. It isn't always recognized in our lessons, but setting goals at the beginning of the year can help them center on all these strengths and work on building these pieces of the cultural capital. Oops, excuse me. So yeah, and I think as we see with the new curriculum, it calls for CLIL, it calls for integration of language in the different subjects. You're working on the European framework of reference for language development. You're working on those competences. It's interdisciplinary. It's all about the functions of language and using language. And I think therefore your curriculum is really well prepared to help students gain language skills, but also this linguistic capital, right? This ability to use everything they have as language skills in all areas of their life. Some of the basis for this also just comes from some of the old theories of language learning, right? The cognitive academic language learning approach, which I have referenced at the end there, talks a lot about the metacognitive skills like planning and reflection that are extremely important in learning a second or third language. And also, I know that many teachers in Latvia use Gagne and the 9 events of instruction for their lesson plans. And within that framework, they call for stated objectives and time for students to reflect on their progress. So again, all of these pieces are the reason, my basis for centering goal setting as a big piece of my classroom instruction. Okay, so some of the tools, and don't worry, you're like, this doesn't look very good. This doesn't have a lot of links yet. Don't worry, this is just a brief overview, and then I'm going to show some more specific tools in a moment. So the number one tool I use to make the process of goal setting and reflection easier for my students and myself is Google Forms. I highly recommend Google Forms. I'll take you in a moment to some of my sample forms, and I can show how to access that through your Google products if you have that. I understand that not everyone has Google Forms, right? There are other tools like this out there. For example, SurveyMonkey, One thing I really like about Google Forms, and I'll show you how to do this in a moment. When you're setting it up, uh, my students' answers all come to me in a way that when I've collected all their answers, I can click a button and it makes a spreadsheet and I can see all of my students' information. And that's so helpful for me in planning instruction. But for my students, it'll also email them a copy of their responses. And I have my students use a form to set goals in the beginning of the year, fill out an entry and exit ticket every day in class through Google Forms. Um, Also use it at the midterm and the end of the year. Of course, requirements, you need either students to have a phone or students to have some sort of like computer lab access, right? You know, maybe if you don't have access to computers on a regular basis, you're not doing this every class meeting or every week, but you're just doing beginning of the year, middle of the term, end of the term, right? And you have students do that through technology. And or maybe you're making a paper-based version of this if technology limitations are a factor. Or maybe it's not Google, but you already have digital portfolios, for example. You know, we use a digital portfolio at my university through our learning management system, and I don't love it. And I have explored other options out there and not found anything that I've really loved. So I'm hoping teachers can maybe share in the comments or give some feedback. What are you using for digital portfolios? I've had a problem with that. Um, I have, you know, often when we set these goals, I have students do it in Google Forms, but I also want them continuing through the year to interact around these goals. And for that, we use discussion boards a lot because that's part of our learning management system. So students will post something in a discussion board about their progress toward their goals, or when students give each other feedback, they do it by first looking at a fellow students' goal. So for example, if we're giving a speech in class, um, students will post all of their goal for their speech in the discussion board. And then when students are giving feedback, they first look at that goal the student set for themselves and then give peer feedback based on the other student's goal. Maybe that student had the goal of not appearing nervous during the speech, right? So then I see that and I make sure as a peer feedback reviewer, I give my commentary specifically about that. I have not used a Facebook group, but I know a lot of teachers do use those private, closed social media groups as another way that students can continue sharing about goals and giving each other feedback. And I recently found out about this website, um, which is a project-based learning website, which I kind of thought offered very similar ways for students to connect about their goals through the school year. This is for project-based learning, which again, I think matches perfectly with the goals of the new curriculum, integrating language into multiple subjects. This helps students plan and then also be able to share their project learning around the world. So I thought that that would be a useful thing to mention as a possible tool for, again, making plans, setting goals, getting inspired, and connecting with others. So again, we'll go into some of these tools in a little more depth, but that's just kind of an overview to get you thinking about what tools are available for students to not only have these goals, right? Not just have a goal on paper, but to start to interact with the goals and use technology to connect and reflect. Okay, so these are some of the steps I use in my classroom when we're thinking about goal setting. At the beginning of the year, I feel like it's really my job to set the vision for students, right? Because I'm the one who's on the other side, right? I've been through the process of language learning and I now have been through school and have a career, right? How can I help be that bridge to students who might not be able to imagine exactly that kind of future yet? So I show the curriculum for the year. We do kind of a brief overview. Sometimes I try to make that active by having the document and having students search for keywords, right? Or, pick out the things that they think that they already have mastered and look for two things that might be something new or a goal within a document of what we're going to be working on that year. We also talk about the bigger picture of goals for learning English, right? Like, how does this connect to globalization and the world economy and, uh, you know, language use in Latvia, right? Anytime, anything that you think your students will connect to in terms of like, why are we learning English? Why is plurilingualism important? Why is this language such a dominant language in the world right now, right? And what are some of the advantages of learning it and what are some of the disadvantages of English being so dominant, right? You can get those conversations going with students, see what they know, spark their interest, and really help them understand the bigger picture. I also like to really offer concrete examples of how English could serve students in the future or learning languages in general. Sometimes I like to, even at this point, uh, just start going through examples of multilingual people, right? Many uh, like educated people, famous people, heroes to our students are multilingual, and it's kind of a fun opportunity to do some quick research on that and kind of have students share with each other how many languages or which languages people speak, right? That these prominent people speak. And I really, again, not just the form of language, but the function. It's not just about learning English, it's about learning different ways to communicate across cultures to different types of people. I like to get students thinking about that beyond just the language of English, because certainly, even if you don't want to learn English, you do want to learn how to be a better communicator, hopefully. So, helping students understand that again, it's a bigger picture than just vocabulary and grammar. And at that point, after we've done some activities, discussions, research activities, brainstorming activities as a group, then I want students making it personal, brainstorming their own vision and goals. So we always start with an inventory of strengths, right? This is where we're bringing in what is your capital that you're bringing to this classroom, whether it's the traditional school knowledge or other strengths you have, what are you bringing, right? Then it's about making it personal to your own interests, your passions, your future goals. And I ask students to make a goal for the class for like what they're going to try to achieve during our class semester or year, and then a beyond, like a more life goal as well. At least those two, you'll kind of see. I'll show actually, this is the form I have students use at the beginning of English 201. Oh, it's gonna make me fill it out. Sorry. Oh, there we go. Now you have my email and my name. Okay, so yeah, with this one you can see, I set this up so at the beginning we are talking about reader's identity. Who are you as a reader? I don't have to answer these. What are your hopes and dreams? Right? Even just like what makes you happy. Again, it doesn't all, these are simple questions. If you're asking them in English, students are getting language practice by answering them, but they're also thinking about, again, their own identity and how it fits into what's going to happen in the class. Here's the actual goal setting. Notice I share the course objectives. And then have some examples there. Finally, at the end, this is where it kind of connects to the idea of a SMART goal. If you've seen that, it's a very popular idea in the corporate world. I assume at this point that my students have specific and measurable goals in mind, and then we talk about how they'll attain them, how they're related to life, and how much time is needed to achieve those goals. Okay, so then when students submit, I have that set to email directly to them their response, and then we'll use that form when we get to the midterm reflection, take that back out and look at our answers. So yeah, this is then the form students use in the midterm. Again, they're describing progress, they have them check grades, talk about what resources they've been using. Again, having students have this list that they're keeping throughout the year of what is working for you, what are you learning, and what have been your challenges that you're working to overcome. How does this feel like this class is connecting to other areas of your life, right? That's in the middle of the term. And at the end of the term, very similar. You're describing your progress, thinking about what grades that resulted in, how did that calculate to your grade, talking about resource use. And again, now trying to move toward, okay, this is what you've accomplished this year. What are you going to take into the next year? And actually, we're working on a format now where students will share this with their future teacher at the beginning of the next term, as they take this back out and think about, ooh, what were the things that really worked for me? What did I learn? What progress did I make? What were my goals? Okay, so that's at the midterm and the end of the year. So obviously part of this, my students are setting these goals and reflecting, but how can I make sure that they're doing that while we're learning as well? So I had a couple suggestions of technology I've used that kind of help students track progress, or have, again, a portfolio might be one place, but there are other technologies and tools out there that I think help students see their progress, track their progress, get feedback from you, and keep it all in one place so that they have something to reflect on when they're going through the reflection process. So the first thing is, when I clicked on it instead of the link that I already had prepared, we'll see. Okay, luckily it just went back to my sign in. Good. So this is a free tool. It's one of the things I use it for is the gamification page. When you go to this, they have templates for like different kind of quizzes or games or little escape rooms that you can make with your material. So that's really fun. But I also like this training materials area. Again, a lot of these are just great concept maps and things like that. But as a teacher, you can share with students lesson plans or choice boards and then have it interactive. If you want to work on this goal, click on this activity. If this is your goal, click here to see some choices of activities that'll help support you in developing that skill, right? So I thought this was a nice way. Again, you can, like, they have these setups that I think would work really well to, again, break out different skills and have students choose which ones to work through. So I've used that before and students have really liked it. I also know Socrative, see, this one did not go to my signed in one. Let's see, is this it? Yes, this is Socrative. Okay, so Socrative is another tool. It's a free tool, but with the free tool, it's a bit limited in what you can do. But this is another way to do exit tickets, right? I said I use Google Form for simple couple question exit tickets on what progress a student made that day. Socrative is another way to do that. I've also seen teachers use this for peer feedback because you can set up these rooms, have a question form that goes out to students, and have them like review each other's work and answer it through here. We also spend a lot of time editing and revising older pieces as a way to track our progress and think about goal setting. And for that, I use Grammarly. This is kind of like a required tool now in our university that students use. And then, okay, sorry, these are my account settings. No, this is not what I want. Anyway, as you go through each piece, This is probably not my writing. This is probably a student writing and I was doing a sample, but it gives you suggestions. And then every week it sends you an email with your stats, right? Your score. How many new words did you use? What were your goals you were working on? So that's another way that by using Grammarly on a regular basis, students will get these emails with a snapshot of their writing progress. Uh, Similar thing you can do with reading. See, I'm not signed in here either. You have to be 13 to have a Goodreads account, but Goodreads is nice. I have students use this and it's open, right? So it's not going to make a group just for your class, but as students are reading, they can set a reading goal. They can keep track of their progress of reading. We want students doing extensive reading, as much reading as possible. And this makes it social because you can review books you like, right? So you can require that students post reviews or comment on other reviews as a way that they can kind of track their reading progress and engage in conversations with other readers. And finally, I was going to show Flipgrid. Let's see, this will probably have a lot. Flipgrid is a great tool because you can set up these little, let's see, question prompts. Students create short videos and then they can, again, the nice thing here is you get immediate comments and feedback. So you're creating these activities that allow students to test out a skill that they're working on as part of a goal. And then there is immediate peer feedback and teacher feedback available. Okay. So yeah, to summarize some of the key ideas here, use the technology to have students set goals and reflect, but also use the technology to help students celebrate their progress and even celebrate the mistakes they're making, which are proof that they are indeed working on their goals, right? These technologies can really help students reflect on how their progress was made, right? Which activities help more? Keep track of the resources you're using, keep track of what's helping you feel successful. Do it right in the moment and then reflect at the end of the year. Um, as students are constantly engaging with these goals, make sure that students are setting new goals as needed. And most importantly, make sure that you have goals, not for learning English, right? Oh, you could, I guess. I mean, everybody, even native speakers, everyone can improve their language skills. So you could set that goal or even share your teaching goals with your students and show them how you reflect and work on making progress toward your own goals. All right, the final page, I just have some of the references I used, and as it's been the maximum amount of time, so I want to let everyone know that you can sign off now, or I'll take a moment and just show really quick how I did set up those Google Forms in case you're thinking, wait, how do I make it email directly to students, or what do I need to do to set this up? So let me change my screen share here. So yeah, if you're not familiar with Google Forms, you're staying around. Otherwise, thank you for listening. Let's see, is this gonna work? Okay. So I'm in my Google Drive, right? drive.google.com. If you have a Google account, you have a Google Drive. You wanna go to Forms. So the nice thing about these forms, again, you can insert images, right? So that's how I had those objectives posted in there. You can insert little video clips if you want to explain something to students through the form. I had it broken into sections, right? I had like, who are you? What are your hopes and dreams? What are your goals? How are you going to meet those goals? I had those 4 sections laid out. Here in the settings, this is where you would want collect emails and response receipts. This is what will make sure it sends always the student a copy of their own answers. And sometimes I like to let students see the summary charts and see what other students are saying. They actually really like that. It's anonymous. It doesn't say who said what, but you can see what other students set for their goals. So that's been a really helpful feature of that. All right, I think those are some of the main things I wanted to show about Google Forms, but thank you for listening to my presentation. And please, again, I will share my email so you can send me your comments, your ideas, let me know how you set goals, what's working, and any questions you have. All right, thank you for your time.